The oceans on our Earth are absolutely beautiful, but they are also absolutely unforgiving, which is why sailing is not for everyone. With the vastness of our oceans, it is easy for ships and people to get lost and for their stories to go down with them. We've got a lot to talk about on today's Life's Biggest Questions video, so let's just get right into it. I am your host today, Olivia Kozlowski, and I am going to be taking you through the top 10 mysterious ghost ships that disappeared. Starting off at our number 10 spot, we have the Carol A. Deering. On July 19, 1920, the Carol A. Deering picked up its cargo of coal and set out for delivery to Rio de Janeiro, but on the way the captain fell quite ill, so the ship had to turn back and port nearby in order to drop him off and get another captain on board. This captain was Captain Willis B. Wormel, who was a retired 66-year-old sea captain, and his first mate was Charles B. McClellan. By the time September rolled around, the Deering was back on track for Rio and the coal was delivered with no issues. While docked in Rio, however, Captain Wormel apparently met with an old friend and spoke of his crew on the ship with a bit of disdain, although he did like the ship's engineer, Herbert Bates. On the way home, the ship stopped for supplies in Barbados and there was more gossip, but this time it was between the first mate and another captain, with the first mate talking smack about Captain Wormel. So clearly there was some tension on the ship, which sucks because you have nowhere to go. Anyway, on January 28, 1921, the ship was sighted by the Cape Lookout lightship off North Carolina, and the lightship's keeper said that someone with a megaphone on the Deering said that the ship had lost its anchor and asked for the keeper to notify the owners of the Deering, but unfortunately the lightship's radio was out, so no call was ever made. On January 31st, the ship was spotted in what is known as the Graveyard of the Atlantic, but because of bad weather it wasn't boarded until February 4th. Once people got on the boat, however, it was clear that the ship had been completely abandoned. The steering equipment was found to be damaged and the wheel was shattered. The ship's log and navigation equipment were gone, along with all personal belongings and the ship's 2 lifeboats. Since this discovery, at least 5 separate government agencies have tried to figure out what could have possibly happened here and what happened to the entire crew, but it remains a mystery to this day. Because of all of the drama, mutiny is suspected to be the most likely explanation, but still, where is the rest of the crew who potentially overthrew the captain? It is likely we may never know the events that took place during those months on the ship. In our number 9 spot today, we have the Kaz II. The Kaz II was a 12-meter long catamaran that set sail on April 15th of 2007 and was found adrift just 3 days later on April 18th, but without her crew. When the ship set sail, she was carrying 3 crew members, all of which were relatively inexperienced sailors. On April 18th, someone in a helicopter reported seeing the adrift ship, but it wasn't until April 20th that maritime authorities were able to catch up with the boat and board it. It was then, however, that they uncovered the bizarre circumstances on the ship. Everything on the ship was perfectly normal, aside from the fact that the crew had just seemingly vanished. There was a meal set on the table waiting to be eaten, a laptop was open and on, the engine was still running, all of the life vests were on board, and all of the ship's emergency systems were fully functioning. The only out of place things were, of course, the missing crew, the fact that one of the ship's sails was badly shredded, and there was no life raft on board, but it is still unclear whether there ever was one on board. There are many theories as to what may have happened to the crew, but none have ever been substantiated or confirmed, which leaves the fate of the 3 crew members a complete mystery that we may never get the answers to. In our number 8 spot today, we have the Mary Celeste. Are you really doing a list of ghost ships if you don't include the Mary Celeste? I don't think so. The Mary Celeste first set sail on November 7, 1872 with a cargo full of alcohol. What happened over the next month isn't quite clear, but what we do know is that on the afternoon of December 5th of the same year, another ship on the Atlantic crossing found her drifting somewhere between Azores and Portugal. The captain of the ship knew the captain of the Mary Celeste and knew that he was a skilled and capable sailor, so he was extremely suspicious. He ordered a crew to board the Mary Celeste, and when they did, they found that the ship had been deserted, but it was in full seaworthy condition, so why would they have abandoned it? Especially the captain. The captain of the ship that found the derelict split his crew and sailed the Mary Celeste to Gibraltar for more investigations, but despite this, the captain, his wife and child, and the crew of 7 that were on board the Mary Celeste simply just disappeared, and no one knows what happened or where they could have gone. I think this one is so famous because it seemingly has no answers tied to it at all. It really really is just one of those mysteries with next to nothing to go off of in terms of clues. In our number 7 spot today we have the SS Baichimo. This ship was first built in Sweden in 1914 and it belonged to the Hudson's Bay Company. This ship was used to trade provisions for pelts in Inuit settlements along the Northwest Territories of Canada, which means that the course it was on was full of icy, freezing waters. On October 1st, 1931, the ship was nearing the end of its trading run and was packed full of fur when it got stuck in some ice. The crew decided the best thing to do would be to briefly abandon the ship and then travel over the ice to get to the nearest town, which is exactly what they did. On October 15th, the Hudson's Bay Company sent an aircraft over which rescued 22 of the crew members, but there were still 15 who were left behind to be saved at a later date. These 15 crew members would periodically return to the ship to move some of the ice and also to grab the cargo and provisions off of the ship. On November 24th, there was a huge storm, and once it cleared, the remaining crew realized that the ship had disappeared. The crew assumed that it had sunk, but that was not the case. Later, an Inuk hunter spotted the ship about 72 miles from the camp that the remaining crew had set up, and somehow they were able to go and locate it. They went there, removed the rest of the valuables, and then abandoned it for the very last time because they did not believe that it would make it through the rest of the winter. The remaining crew was finally rescued, and the next time the ship was seen, it was 480 miles away from the previous sighting. For 40 years after this, the SS Baichimo was periodically sighted, floating through the sea, and sometimes even providing a shelter for those who needed it most. In 2006, the Alaskan government set out on a mission to find the ghost ship, but since the most previous sighting, she has never been seen or located again. Not even a wreck of the ship has been found, so at this point, no one knows where the ship may be. It is still one of the longest sailing ghost ships of all time, and maybe it is still out there waiting to be found once again. In our number 6 spot today we have High Aim 6. High Aim 6 left port in Taiwan on Halloween 2002, which just seems like a day that no one should set sail on, you know? But they did anyway, and the next time the ship was spotted, it was found abandoned within an 80 nautical mile range of Australia's Rowley Shoals. The last time contact was made with anyone on the ship was with the captain in December when the boat's owner contacted him and everything seemed fine, but by January there was no one left on board. What's even weirder is that when the ship was found, the engines were fully fueled and running, all of the crew's personal belongings along with all provisions were still on board, and there was no obvious signs of any kind of damage or struggle. It's like everyone on board just vanished. To further this mystery, one crew member ended up being found and taken into custody, and when questioned, apparently they said that the crew of the ship had mutinied, but gave no reasons as to why or answers on where everyone else could be. In our number 5 spot today we have the Ocean Wave. Bas Jan Adder was a Dutch conceptual and performance artist as well as a skilled sailor. He set sail on July 9th, 1975 in a ship called the Ocean Wave as he was setting sail to make his single-handed west to east coast crossing of the North Atlantic. He estimated that his trip was going to take around 2.5 months, but it wasn't until 9 months after he set sail that his boat was found unmanned, floating almost vertically in the water. The people who found the ship were Spanish fishermen who then took the boat back to Spain, where it ended up being stolen. Throughout all of this, Bas was nowhere to be found, and even still, over 40 years later, the mystery of what exactly happened remains. There are people who speculate he fell overboard in heavy bad weather, but of course this is impossible to tell, especially with neither the boat or Bas to provide evidence. The information to go on has only been what was provided by the people who saw the boat before it was stolen, so of course that is not nearly enough to really have any questions answered. In our number 4 spot today we have the HMS Resolute. The ship was a British Royal Navy ship that was abandoned and later found in 1854 drifting near the coast of Baffin Island in the Canadian Arctic. The crazy thing is that this ship had initially set out to find the remains of another lost ship, but it somehow managed to end up with a similar fate. The ship was found lodged in ice with no crew aboard at all, and not one single member of the crew has ever been found since. Those who boarded the ship were met with a strange scene as they entered the ship, as everything seemed to be in perfect order. The captain's cabin was seemingly just as he had left it, with a teapot, Bible, and a couple glasses full of alcohol. There was a British flag left draped over the ship commander's chair. No one has ever been able to figure out what happened on that ship, why the crew abandoned it, or where they went. The ship was eventually recovered and retired, however, and the wood from it was apparently used to create the Resolute desk, which sits in the Oval Office and has been used by most presidents since the 19th century, which is a kind of cool but very eerie fact. In our number 3 spot today we have the Zhang Sen. In 2006, the Australian Coast Watch found a ship floating out at sea that was completely empty with a broken tow rope. Finding a ship floating with no one on board is always a strange kind of mystery, but things only got more mysterious from there on out. Investigators had absolutely nothing to go off of that could give them any kind of clues. The name of the ship was printed on the side, but that's it. There was nothing else to identify the ship, there were no documents or belongings, no reports of missing boats, no records of distress signals, like literally nothing. They can't even figure out who it belonged to or where it came from. Their best guess is that the ship was possibly used to supply food and fuel to fishing boats, but that does not explain why no one tried to save it or even look for it. Was there someone on it when it got lost? Who knows? In our number 2 spot today we have the SS Rang Medan. This ship is one of the most notorious ghost ship stories out there, and honestly it totally makes sense why. This story is so fascinating. The legend goes that in 1947 there was a cargo ship off of the coast of Indonesia which put out a distress call. The call stated, "All officers including captain are dead, lying in chart room and bridge, possibly whole crew dead." Okay. Not good already, but things quickly got worse when, before help could arrive, there was a second message radioed in that was just 2 words: "I die." By the time help arrived at the ship, those who boarded were welcomed with a gruesome sight. All of the crew members were found deceased with their bodies in strange positions, but there were no obvious signs of injury, so how the heck did they die? Well, unfortunately, before any kind of investigation could be done to answer that question, a fire which started in the engine room ended up ravaging the entire ship, which ultimately sank. To this day, there are still debates about what exactly happened, how these people died, and if the ship was even ever real. What do you guys think? In our number 1 spot today we have Octavius. The Octavia set sail from England in 1761 and was headed to try and find the Northwest Passage. While the Northwest Passage is now free, but still difficult to sail through, in 1761 the chances of making it through the Northwest Passage were much more grim. The passage was the demise of many skilled sailors who were attempting to find an alternate trade route to Asia. So, back to the Octavius, which again set sail from England in 1761. Well, this ship was never seen again until it was found off of the coast of Greenland in 1775. The captain of the ship unfortunately fell into the same trap as many before him, and the ship ended up getting stuck in the Arctic ice. But here's the wildest thing about this particular story. When the ship was found in 1775, 5 men boarded it and found a horrifying scene. The entire 28-man crew was below deck, but all frozen to death. The captain was even found, frozen, sitting at his desk, pen in hand. He was writing in his logbook with the last entry coming in 1762. This ghost ship and the crew had been lost at sea for 13 years before they were found. I couldn't even imagine having to enter the ship that day. Alright guys, that has been our list for today. Thank you so much for checking it out. Don't forget to hit that thumbs up button if you enjoyed the video today, and make sure you subscribe. I've been your host today, Olivia Kozlowski, and I'll see you next time. Bye!